Hi everyone, it's Chris speaking. Welcome back. Yes, I am wearing the same shirt as I was in the last video. You're welcome. Today I want to take a moment and talk to you about some YouTubers that I admire. The reason that I want to do this and I want to show you some different channels is because I was in a different place personally when I started my transition than a lot of the content that was coming out. When I started looking a couple of years ago, I was following basically anyone and everyone under the sun who had a platform. That included people like Calvin Garra, who I didn't agree with a whole lot, but he was still going through transition and I was consuming all that content up. Noah Fintz or Noah Adams, and Jackson Milo. Now, I actually really like Jackson Milo's channel, but he is about a decade younger than me, so there was definitely an age gap, and it took a little while of sifting through some of those younger YouTube content creators to find people that I sort of resonated with personally as someone a little bit older going through transition. Now, these people don't necessarily talk all about their transition anymore, and yes, there are some younger people in this list, but they are people who I personally resonated and some positive trans influences, I feel. So if you are looking to consume content and you stumbled across my small channel, one, thank you. Two, let me give you some other people to go out and follow and hopefully get inspired by, whether it be in transition or in other things. Like I said, a lot of these people are quite well into their transition, and whilst they still talk about it, and I consumed a lot of their older videos, they now have moved on to do other things in their lives. That in itself is a big part of transition, when transition is no longer your entire life. And I definitely understand why there is a pull to go stealth, or a pull to not let not let your being trans define you and define your life. And I think that these people have come out of it, but they have created some really good educational content and continue to be inspiring. So without any further ado, let's have a look at my computer screen and I will show you some YouTubers that inspire me and inspired me in my transition journey and continue to do so to this day, whether it be transition related or not. Alright guys, so we're going to jump into YouTube and have a look at a few of the trans YouTubers that I admire for different reasons. You can see them all at the top there, but I am definitely going to run through and just give you a little brief overview about why I like them personally for me. The first one on there being myself. If you haven't subscribed then, go and do it. You can do that by clicking the subscribe button down the bottom and then click like, because you want to. Yes, listen to the dulcet tones of my voice. Hit subscribe. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and give you two honorable mentions for this video. The first one being Jackson Milo, which I talked about briefly before. Now, Jackson is a young fella. He started his transition quite a few years ago, actually, but medical transition about a year and a half ago, and had top surgery in February this year. I really like Jackson's channel. Even though he is young, he has a maturity beyond his years, and is quite raw and honest with how he's feeling. And everything that's happened to him in his journey. Now, the healthcare system that he went through in Ireland wasn't as good as the one that I went through in Australia, and he had to wait so long for his testosterone. I remember watching him when I started looking at trans content and really feeling for him, because he'd been knocked back from his testosterone appointment time and time again, and it was just awesome to see him get in there and get on T and just be the person that he was always meant to be. And his journey as a young guy is really quite inspiring. The second YouTuber that I want to give a shout out to, or I guess an honorable mention, is just a woman who really inspires me because of how intelligent she is. Now, yes, she is a trans woman, yes, she talks about trans issues and trans activism, but this woman is probably the smartest person that I've ever heard on a YouTube channel, and it's different than anything else that I sort of follow or that I listen to, and she talks about real stuff. And her name is Riley Gray. So very political. She is a law student, so it is quite, I guess, heavy in terms of dialogue, but talks about real issues, particularly in the US. And I find her really, really interesting to listen to, and definitely deserves an honorable mention as a trans YouTuber who inspires me. Now, If you haven't heard of Aiden Dowling, you're probably living under a rock. Aiden is one of the biggest names in trans masculine space. He was on the cover of, I think it was Men's Health, as the first transgender man on the cover of a magazine like that. And now that particular journey was his own, and he had to come to terms with his body and what he was doing and that, but super inspiring. Still talks about transition, very honest about how he's feeling. In terms of, I've been watching his latest series, which is all about trans fitness. It's this one here, and I think that's the last video I actually watched of his. Very inspiring to people of all ages. No matter what age you are starting, you will find something on his channel. I'm actually really interested in what his wife does as well in terms of spirituality, and she is quite inspiring as well with her own journey with him and transparenting and all the rest of it, and you can follow these guys here. Another mention I want to give a shout out to is Ty Turner. Now, Ty does a lot of content that I don't necessarily watch, but I watch a lot of his older videos when I sort of started questioning my own gender. The reason that I like Ty Turner is because he has not had any surgeries, and he's not afraid to talk about that. There are trans people who with different experiences to me, and trans people with different experiences to you. This is one of those guys. He is positive. He's created Fit to Me, which if you, he's created Fit to Me, which if you haven't heard of, it is a trans masculinizing t-shirt which is meant to, I guess, hide your hips and really give you a sense of gender euphoria by wearing a t-shirt. I think this guy's pretty awesome. Check him out in the link below. Now, somebody else that I quite admire is Luxander. They are a trans-masculine, non-binary YouTuber. Now, when I first started looking, I don't know how I came across their channel, but very intelligent young person, has been in a monogamous relationship as someone who is non-binary, I can't speak, for quite a few years, and I really like their content. I like that they are just honest and real, and nothing is made up. They talk about their experiences, they talk about their beliefs. There is no apology for what they believe in, and I just think that that honesty is so refreshing, and I really like their stuff. So if you do want to check out a non-binary YouTuber, if you're heading in that direction, or you want a different, I guess, experience, the reason that I was looking at non-binary content, I started with people like Ash Hardell, and I like Ash Hardell. I like the content that they create, but it just didn't resonate with me and my own personal journey, whereas Luxander kind of did. They were in a more, I guess, trans-masculine space, and talk about that trans-masculine space from a non-binary perspective. And when I was playing around with pronouns and starting my gender sort of questioning, this was an avenue that I felt was really helpful to me personally. The next two are probably my top picks for inspiring people in order. First of those two is Jackson Bird. One, look at how adorable he is. I can't. He's very real, very intelligent. He's written a book called Sorted, and if you haven't picked that up yet, I highly recommend it. I've picked it up. I had to put it down. Jackson's story resonates quite a bit with my own, and sometimes makes me uncomfortable. That's not in a bad way. It's just that I recognize a lot of things in Jackson that I've gone through personally, and that can sometimes be a little bit hard to deal with. So Jackson started transition at 25. I started transition at 26. Some of the things that he said, particularly in his, as you've seen, this 5 years later FTM video, I had to stop. I was watching it during work and I got really emotional, and I haven't been able to go back. But that being said, I think he is an important voice in this community, as someone who transitioned a little bit older, as someone who identified differently during the college years, and it's a different story if you're someone who's older like me, and I think it is well worth a watch. Now, on the top of my list, and someone that I continually watch 20-minute videos for, is Mr. Coach Cody. Now, he has sort of stopped talking about his transition so much, but doesn't hide that it's part of him. He is a bodybuilder. What he does in his channels is he has a whole lot of trans channels. So you can see here we have the phalloplasty. He's basically gone the whole way, but what he's been doing recently is bodybuilding, and he's taking you through cutting and bulking and talking to you about his own sort of motivations and his discipline, and it's all into fitness, and he is at the top of my list. I am so inspired by this person that it's really, really hard. You find someone that inspires you and you just sort of go with it. And I really think that he's doing amazing things, not only for himself in the trans community, but in the fitness community. And he's the one person that has shown me that transition is not everything. It doesn't have to define who you are. And that in itself was a really important message to me personally. Cody was married when he was much younger, and came from a religious background and had a whole lot of past trauma. I come from a religious background, and I think that's what drew me to Cody initially. And when I was sort of started to look at these channels, he was talking about transition, and it was when he was going through phalloplasty. But now he just is an inspiration. I'll stop fanboying over all of these people, but they are people that inspire me, and maybe they can inspire you too. Alright, that is it from me. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. There are a couple of people that I still continually subscribe to. Now, I'm not saying I don't subscribe to some of those younger trans people. Hello, do you guys see that fly? That I don't subscribe to some of the younger trans people, because I definitely still subscribe to people like Jackson Milo. I think he's a great kid, and he is doing really good things, not only for the community, but he's now at that point where he doesn't let his transition define him, but he's still trying to give back to the community, and I think that's awesome. I still subscribe to people like Calvin. Now, don't come for me for that. I know Calvin's done a lot of, I guess, bad in the past, but I also think that he has grown a shitload, and remember, he's only 20. So we were all like dumbasses when we were in our teenage years, and if you tell me that you weren't, and you weren't in some way arrogant, then I don't believe you. But I think that he has come a really long way, and I don't agree with everything that he says, but I also think that we shouldn't shit on somebody because they have a different experience to us. The people that are in this list are people that I find inspiring to this day, and I remember actually sending a fanboy message to Mr. Coach Cody, and he messaged me back, and I was too nervous to continue the conversation. I was like, oh my god, he just messaged me back. What a nice human. Okay, bye. But I still, he is my top. He is at the top of his game. He's doing what he wants to do, anxiety or not, and I really, really admire that. Anyway, I've rambled enough. If you like the content, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of it, click my face. I've put everyone's channel down below if you do want to go along and follow any of them. I'll catch you next time. Okay, bye.